In December 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers on a remote, uninhabited island disappeared without a trace. Just off the island of Lewis, northwest of mainland Scotland, lies a group of islands known as the Flannan Isles. One of these islands is home to the infamous Eilean Mor lighthouse. With nothing but the lighthouse on the island and cut off from the rest of the world, the disappearance of 3 keepers in 1900 has shrouded the island in complete mystery. It was only after a year of the lighthouse becoming functional in 1899 that the 3 ill-fated keepers disappeared. The primary keeper, James Ducat, second assistant Thomas Marshall, and third assistant Donald MacArthur were all experienced keepers and well trained with maintaining a lighthouse. On the 20th of December, Joseph Moore, a rotating keeper, was due to sail out to Eilean Mor to replace one of the keepers. But bad weather prevented him from heading out until 6 days later, on the 26th of December. On that morning of December 26th, an anxious Joseph Moore was sailed out to the island by Captain James Harvey aboard the Hesperus. When they came within distance, Harvey sounded his horn to alert the keepers of their imminent arrival. But as they got closer, Harvey couldn't see anybody waiting at the docks. Unnerved by the non-existent welcoming party, Joseph Moore sailed from the boat in a small dinghy and set foot on the island, calling out for the keepers as he climbed up the steps. Moore recalled a strong sense of foreboding as he made his way to the top, fearing the worst, unable to fathom why the keepers were not present at the docks. As he reached the compound, Moore frantically searched the lighthouse and the island, but found no sign of the keepers anywhere in the compound or on the island. Moore alerted the captain, who left 2 members of his crew with Moore before sending a telegram to the NLB, the Northern Lighthouse Board, reporting the events. Despite a full investigation later on by Robert Muirhead, a superintendent with the NLB, none of the keepers were found, and there was no conclusive evidence that told them what had really happened. Despite this, due to clues they did find, the official conclusion was that the 3 men had been swept out to sea by a combination of bad weather and rough seas. But how could 3 highly experienced keepers on a brand new lighthouse designed to withstand such conditions fall victim to this? There's a reason why the Eilean Mor has attracted so much attention over the years, and it's this ambiguous conclusion combined with odd clues and inconsistent collaborations that have developed a mysterious nature to the case. When Moore arrived on the island and began his search, he noticed 2 out of 3 of the oilskins were missing, meaning that 2 men had been outside in the rain. This made sense as the NLB forbade all 3 men to be outside at the same time. But why was the one remaining? The investigation would later reveal the coat was most likely MacArthur's, which would mean he had disobeyed regulations and ventured out without his coat, as well as being outside with the other 2 keepers. But why? Moore also stumbled across the journal, which provided evidence to suggest there wasn't actually any adverse weather or rough seas. According to the journal found at the lighthouse, on the 12th of December, the second assistant Thomas Marshall had written of terrible weather and severe winds of which he had never seen before. What's mysterious about this entry is that there wasn't any reports of storms or even bad weather in the area until the 17th of December. Marshall had also made bizarre reports of the men praying, Ducat being extremely quiet, and that MacArthur, a notorious tough guy, had been crying. The journal's final entry came on the 15th of December, where Marshall reported, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." What that last entry means is not entirely certain, particularly since none of the keepers were known to be religious. Later that night, sometime after the last entry, around midnight, a ship passing the island noticed it wasn't shining its light and made a report to the mainland. But the report never reached the NLB. This has led many to believe that the three lighthouse keepers disappeared sometime between the last journal entry and midnight of the same day. Some people have speculated that they went missing sometime after dinner, as there was evidence of recently washed dinner plates. The Superintendent Robert Muirhead in his investigation reported rope dangling down from the rocks and onto the loading platform, along with a large boulder which had come loose from the cliff. Interestingly, the second assistant marshal had been disciplined by the NLB in the past for not securing rope properly. While this could potentially explain why two of the men were outside, Marshal, fearing backlash for again not securing rope, may have convinced Ducat to help him. However, it doesn't explain how they disappeared, nor why MacArthur did too. One of the most popular theories suggests that Marshall and Ducat were out trying to secure rope, when MacArthur, watching from the lighthouse, saw a series of large waves heading towards the island. In a state of panic, he would have rushed out to warn the men, which explains why his oilskin was still there, only for him to suffer the same fate. Whilst a sound theory, it isn't entirely perfect, as it doesn't explain why the compound and lighthouse doors were both shut. If MacArthur was indeed rushing to warn the men, it seems unusual that he would stop to shut the doors. It also doesn't explain the lack of bodies, which in theory should have washed up to shore. Other lighthouse keepers, including those who worked on the island after the incident, have pinned the blame on that particular lighthouse being new. They claim that despite it being brand new and built to withstand heavy conditions, it doesn't mean the keepers were too. With it being new and unknown to anyone, the keepers didn't know what to expect and were caught off guard by the island's extreme weather conditions. After 100 years, nobody has brought forward concrete evidence regarding the disappearance, and sadly, it's not likely anybody ever will. But that hasn't stopped the more outlandish theories from circulating. Some have pointed the blame to UFOs, spirits that are said to inhabit the island, or even perhaps a little bit more down-to-earth theories, such as foreign spies capturing them or pirates. But it seems hard to believe foreign spies would want 3 Scottish lighthouse keepers in 1900, and as there was no evidence of plunder, pirates are out of the question too. But what about the theory of a possible murder-suicide? Some people have speculated that one of the keepers could have gone insane and killed the other 2 before killing himself. But again, there was no evidence of violence, blood, or even a scuffle. And with all 3 men being experienced keepers used to isolation, this one seems relatively unlikely. So what did happen out with Eilean Mor? I want to believe the theory that the 3 men were caught by a freak wave. After all, it seems to make the most sense. But there's just something about the whole case that isn't quite right. Some of the things don't add up or make sense. But I guess that's what makes this case so interesting. What do you think?